Amita, we are live now. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Goethe Centrum Hyderabad's Earth Week. Yesterday, 22nd of April, was Earth Day. On the HLF online event today, and I welcome you on behalf of all my colleagues at the Hyderabad Literary Festival, as well as colleagues from the Goethe Centrum Hyderabad. Today is the International Day of the Book, declared such by UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, to promote reading, publishing, and copyright. What a wonderful coming together of reading, books, Earth Day, environment, and human potential and facility to learn and combine all these. This is the case with the book in question today, titled Bare Necessities: How to Live a Zero Waste Life, written by two people passionate about their, well, our environment and aiming to teach us zero waste life. We are privileged to have Sahar Mansoor and Tim the Ridder with us today from Bangalore and Sydney, respectively. Thank you, Tim, for burning the midnight oil.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for having us, Amita.
I would like to learn more about how Sahar, for example, has produced 500 grams of waste. Well, what do you guys think? In one day? 1 week, maybe? 1 year? Well, no. 500 grams of waste in 5 years. Kudos, Sahar. This I would like to learn. The two authors will be led in conversation by Hyderabad-based Tanya Rao. Tanya Rao is the founder of the new Cultural Community Center in Hyderabad, the Chalet, and has dabbled in various passions and occupations, from playing professional tennis at the age of 7 to a stint in television journalism, followed by joining the founding team of Kwan Entertainment in South India. She has had the opportunity to chase her dreams. How wonderful. Working closely with lots of interesting people has helped her zero in on founding the Chalet. This is a space that caters to a large section of people by offering a co-working space for many, an activity center, a cafe, and retail spaces. The space at Chalet, as well as Tanya, provide that ideal platform for innovators and young leaders to grow and follow their vision. Thank you, Tanya, for taking over this session from here, and over to you for the rest of the evening. A quick word on the format. Please do keep your audio and video off during the session. Please feel free to put all your questions in the chat box. They will be raised on your behalf by Tanya and myself and my colleague Jyoti Bezwada to the resource people. And we look forward to having a very meaningful session at the HLF online event. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you so much for introducing me, Amita. It is an absolute pleasure to be moderating this panel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful evening and staying safe indoors. I work in the space of sustainable living, and I know how important it is to understand everything Sahar and Tim have spoken about in their book, Bare Necessities: How to Live a Zero Waste Life. The book is a perfect guide to make the shift to sustainable and zero waste lifestyle. It is a must read for anyone who wants to bring about a positive change in their life and the environment. So if you haven't already bought your copy, do it now. It is available on Amazon to purchase. I would like to now introduce Sahar and Tim. Firstly, congratulations on the book. I'm truly excited for people to read it. Really big congratulations to the two of you.
Thank you so much. That's super generous of you to say thank you.
So I'll start with Sahar. I'll introduce her first and then move on to Tim. I've actually had the pleasure of meeting and working with Sahar before. We have worked through the chalet a little bit. She has actually come down and hosted a couple of workshops with us. We retail bare necessities products at the chalet, so it has been a fantastic 2 years of an experience working with her. It brings me great joy to see how many people Sahar continues to impact, on a regular basis through the content that she creates on her website and the products that she's creating through the brand. Sahar is the founder and CEO of the zero waste social enterprise Bare Necessities. Her business offers zero waste personal care, lifestyle, and home care, educational products and services like online sustainable courses that you can subscribe to and purchase on their website. Their courses and educational material are simple, everyday sustainable solutions that everyone must consciously learn and implement. Amita already brought this up, but did you know that Sahar had a 500-gram jar of waste that she brings to all of her workshops? I mean, can you believe that this 500 grams of waste was produced only over 5 years? How many of us can turn around and actually say that? None. I don't know how many can. But really, Sahar, kudos to you. Your work is truly inspirational to many, many people, and I'm sure you will continue to achieve great heights.
Thank you, Tanya. That was honestly making me sound way cooler than I actually am. And so happy to have such a great Bare Necessities, such a great home in the chalet in Hyderabad.
Very excited to have you guys. I'm moving on to Tim to introduce him. Tim began his environmental career in Australia. Prior to moving to Southeast Asia and South Asia, he has a master's degree in environmental management and sustainability from Monash University, Australia. He has organized a wide range of workshops on sustainability with a focus on circular economy. The creation of an online education course on waste in India and community engagement initiatives in Cambodia and Malaysia. He has also written widely on environmental topics, including a research paper on the livelihoods of low-income communities and the benefits of carbon farming for Indigenous Australians. Then, to hear everything about the book from the authors as I am. I would like to now move into having a conversation with Sahar and Tim. Sahar, we can start with questions with you, followed by the same questions from Tim, if you guys are okay with that format.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you created this wonderful book?
Yeah, sure. So just a little bit about me. I mean, I know, Tanya and Amita have already spoken a little bit, but, very simply put, I'm an environmental nerd, always loved nature. I've grown up spending lots of time in Cubbon Park and, family holidays meant kind of road trips in nature. But I think I started to kind of identify myself as an environmentalist in college, in university, taking all these courses that really kind of highlight the social justice issues associated with our waste problem. And that's when I really tried to start aligning my lifestyle and values closely with what I was studying. And then I worked in the solar energy space, and then I stumbled upon this waste picker community, little by the Bangalore airport essentially, and that's when I really decided to stop as much plastic as I possibly could in my lifestyle and start living this zero waste lifestyle, which sounds a little crazy and intimidating, but very simply put, it's just trying to reduce our waste to as little as possible. And I thought that, FMCG industry, as we know, it hasn't really seen innovation in a long time. And I think through Bare Necessities, we're trying to create alternatives that are designed not to land up in the oceans and landfills, but also along the way to make sustainability really fun and accessible. And that's kind of why we wrote the book.
That's fantastic. Tim, moving on to you.
Sure. Sorry, I did just drop out a little bit there, Sue. So I'll just give a bit of an overview. So my apologies, just a technical glitch. Yeah, thanks for having me along. So for everyone out there, I was actually living and working in Bangalore and fortunate to be with Bare Necessities for about a year as a consultant. And putting this book together with Sahar and the rest of the team that Sahar just outlined was a really great fundamental shift for us to move to sort of sharing knowledge. And that's what this book is really all about. We've had so many ideas about sort of feedback and questions that we were gaining from workshops and talks and events, things like ones hosted at the chalet, like you mentioned earlier, where all of that feedback was always just in one room. So how do we go and get that in different locations of the country as well and further abroad? So that was partly bringing together things like the online courses, but then also trying to place this down into solutions in a book that everyone can achieve. So it's a really great project to be a part of.
That's fantastic. Sahar, how long ago did you make the shift to a zero waste lifestyle? How long has it been since you have been living a zero waste lifestyle?
Yeah, sure. So honestly, 2015 was like filled with experiments in my mom's kitchen. Like, bless her, she's been so, encouraging and supportive of a bunch of disasters, honestly, that have taken place in her kitchen. 2015 was when I started. And they were very kind of small incremental steps. It was kind of like a snowball effect. So whenever I kind of ran out of one personal care product, I would try and make it myself. Or whenever we ran out of something in the kitchen, I would try and find a plastic-free alternative. So it was very kind of incremental. But I think maybe from 2016 is when it kind of got more formalized. And I kind of had processes or few recipes to go to and things like that. So it was work in progress, but yeah, roughly from 2015.
That's fantastic. Wow. That's really amazing. Tim, and how long ago did you start doing workshops in sustainable living? And if you could maybe tell us a little bit about the kind of workshops that you have done?
Yeah, of course. So a lot of the work that I kind of directed myself into was working with communities at quite a broad range. So talking school children to adults in corporate environments as well, and then also sort of informal events, so things like cafes or sort of larger climate active initiatives where large groups of people interested in the same topic coming together were involved. And that kind of really introduced me to what it's really like to have a great social impact, along with aligning that with environmental outcomes as well. So that could be sharing knowledge about reducing waste in a way that suits them. So for instance, that could be composting, or it could also be sort of avoiding single-use plastic as well. So quite a great range, but really focused on delivering really simple and sustainable solutions that people can achieve without trying to make it too complex. And that's one of the big focuses, I think, with workshops and talks, when you're trying to get it down to something that's not dumbing it down too far, but it's also not going to be so complex that you need a PhD to go and crack it. It's getting that middle line where everyone can embrace it.
Correct. And have you done any of your workshops in Bangalore in collaboration with Sahar before? I'm sorry, I lost you guys there for a few seconds because of internet problem.
Yeah, so I've run many in Bangalore, as well as across India. I was living there for a few years. And Bangalore was the main area because a few of the jobs that I was working with were based in Bangalore, so for different social enterprises. But then in different locations as well, where I travel to and visit those community locations. So Bangalore was definitely a key location because Bare Necessities, a business, is located there.
Absolutely.
Being really humble that he's done lots of kind of workshops with Daily Dump, which is where he worked prior to Bare Necessities, and then also has traveled to like crazy rural parts of Tamil Nadu to do talks and workshops with a really close friend and translator as well. So, diverse geographies and diverse topics around composting.
Yeah, and just adding to that as well, I think the opportunity for us to go and speak to people in the north of India or into rural communities, and how that differs to delivering this kind of information in Bangalore really allowed us to kind of communicate what we needed to different groups and make this message unique to each reader, because we were gaining information from different perspectives all over the country. And that was something that really great opportunity to be involved in.
That's fantastic. And do the both of you think that there is a good response from people in India to make a lifestyle shift to a more sustainable way of living?
Yeah, I think I'm amazed by kind of the interest it's garnered over the past few years. I think, maybe in 2013, 2014, it was more of an alien concept, but now like everyone knows about what zero waste is, and they're
You're
mushrooming
right, yeah.
amazing sustainable businesses creating great alternatives. And I think that is in fact kind of a validation of the fact that it's really kind of catching on as a concept, and more than that, a lifestyle and philosophy that guides people's lifestyles, which is honestly so exciting. And I think also where we've been honestly really humbled by the response of the book. It's been on the Nielsen book list weeks in a row and things like that. And even just very organic shout outs by amazing environmentalists that we love and deeply respect and admire. So I'm honestly really excited, and hope we can translate it into multiple languages to make it even more accessible to different audiences.
I'm sure you guys will be able to. Like I said, guys, and anyone and everyone that's watching this right now, if you haven't already bought the book, you must. It is on Amazon for you to purchase. Please do it. So again, I'm going back to Sahar and then Tim. Tell me why you think the book is needed in India.
Yeah, sure. So, Sahar, if you want to go first, or
Sure. So, essentially, I think when I started on my zero waste journey, I saw a lot of Western focused blogs and books, and, the rhetoric was honestly dominated by like a white girl rhetoric. And it was really kind of funny to me because a lot of zero waste things are just traditionally in our Indian culture, right? Whether it's like our bazaars, our tiffin, I mean, the list goes on, and a lot of things that we just do is like from our jugad nature, sometimes it's like that old toothbrush, which is then used as a nada stick. Like, I mean, we get
Correct.
so creative with that. Things that we reuse in Indian culture. So I think we really thought there was a gap in this ecosystem. And when I first transitioned into this lifestyle, I feel like I had to, research high and low and try to figure out all of the resources. So we thought, like, why not make this like one-stop shop guide where you have recipes, people, entrepreneurs, enterprises for any kind of problem you think, whether it's like, oh my God, how do I make my clothes more sustainable, or my footwear, or my food, just or even the cities that I live in, things like that. So we've just tried to highlight a lot of examples to make it kind of really digestible for everyone in the Indian economy.
just to dive into that a little bit more, some of the examples that we've got are sort of specifically focused on those regions that we had interactions with great organizations. So if you were based up in the northeast, for example, which is obviously far away from Bangalore, then we've made a few recommendations of organizations that you could contact to, say, start composting, or say sustainable fashion choices as well. And really just that entire ethos of how to reduce waste within your home and as an individual, but then also to your community. And depending on where your community is, you'll fashion the knowledge in the book to that as well. So it was really a great approach to make a book that was unique for India. And falling back on the earlier question that you mentioned about whether this is a strong desire in this transition to people becoming more and more aware of the situation. We've had so many great examples in workshops, but one of the ones that I really like falling back on was a workshop I ran in Uti, and before I actually started working with Sahar, when I was with Daily Dump. And this young boy was probably grade 4, so and it was really pressing to find out more and more information about why plastic was bad. And it wasn't just it didn't want the turtle to actually go and eat it, or the cow. It was actually understanding how that plastic bag that was coming from a fossil fuel derived source was actually getting to there. So really, as much as we're saying we're trying to simplify the knowledge, we also want people to understand the reason why an item that's generated from fossil fuels, in this instance being a single-use bag, can be bad, and really providing that knowledge to people as young as that who are really wanting to know and understand. And the more that you delve into it, then the more fascinated you can be, but also the more solutions you'll find as an individual coming out of it.
Absolutely right. That you actually, the both of you have answered my next question, which is, your book moves through a structured approach that helps the reader reduce waste in specific sections of their life. Why did you take this approach?
Yeah, so honestly, I think, a lot of us kind of live with our parents, roommates, partners, etc. And not necessarily everyone is trying to live a really zero waste lifestyle or cares about the environment in a manner that maybe an individual, is looking to transition to this lifestyle. So we started actually with the personal care routine because, in the restroom, when you wake up in the morning, you have full kind of control over what you use to brush your teeth, comb your hair, all of that stuff. And that's kind of been an entry point intervention to a lot of people's life into living a more sustainable lifestyle. And that's what we've kind of found from interacting with a lot of folks. And then kind of the next fact, going out from the personal care routine is maybe the kitchen, which you might kind of co-inhabit with someone. And then it kind of goes up to larger concepts like the cities that you occupy. So we've tried to take like a close-up perspective where you first start to kind of use all of these aspects in your own personal life, and then slowly think about circular economy as a system and how everything is so interconnected and related. So that's kind of the idea for the flow.
Yeah, the other thing that really makes us unique is, well, a few areas, I suppose. So we do provide activities to assess your waste throughout, but we're falling back on insights that Sahar's first-person knowledge actually provides. So we've interwoven her narrative and her experiences through each of these stage chapters so that the reader can learn from Sahar's personal experiences or knowledge she's gained from other people within the industry, or say from a grandmother or other family members in living more sustainably. And then providing that knowledge allows the reader to then go and undertake some activities to assess the waste, look at what kind of resources or tools you've got around. And this could be in some of the recipes, or ideas to say make a sustainable face mask or learn how to compost, or a number of those kind of choices that we've provided in things like a zero waste recipes section, but then also this great section we've placed in being a zero waste library. So at the end of each chapter, we've got quite a wealth of information about how to live more sustainably and process and transition towards that. And it's really just about learning a little bit more each day. It's not about going and achieving 100% on the first day. It's just looking at that and knowledge and how can you continue to build that up. And it's sort of that really fresh way to look at it, to provide information for people in just a way that's really unique for India, particularly because of the knowledge that Sahar's been able to interwove between each chapter.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Sahar, do you have anything else to add? Would you like to say anything else?
I love that actually Tim brought up the zero waste library because that's obviously my favorite part, which is that curated source of people. And a lot of people that maybe also don't have like a digital footprint, maybe a solution that you won't find on Instagram or like online. So we've also tried to highlight a lot of local kind of examples as well.
That's lovely. And it is actually a great part of the book. I think that you have a library at the end of it. It's really amazing. It helps everyone that has made the or has taken the chance to read the book to understand how they can move to a more sustainable life, actually implement small everyday things. And Sahar, like you brought up in the start of our conversation, these are things that we have learned as Indians from our ancestors and grandparents, and a lot of us from our parents. We still see and learn a lot of these things, and it's fantastic that you're bringing it out the way you are. So again, congratulations on your book, guys. Like I couldn't be happier for the two of you for what you are doing.
That's so sweet of you. Thank you.
But that brings me to my next question. In the midst of the pandemic, the two of you have written this book and have released it. What was the process of writing the book through the pandemic? What did you go through? What were you feeling?
Oh, it wasn't a plan to write it in a pandemic. We would have been happy to not do that.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a lot of this kind of face-to-face interaction. I was outside the country a little bit for quite extended periods of time, especially last year, but some period during 2019 as well, where we had video calls and really had to schedule time in because I had a full-time work in Australia, and Sahar was obviously running her business, which is 7+ days a week. So very, very busy. So it was kind of finding that space and time to dedicate a set number of hours over the weekends, particularly, to go, how do we actually make sure this is right? And also working with friends and family looking to edit it and co-workers too. So we'd provide them with the set script that we had at that point, undertake it, and then providing that to the publisher longer term. And then that back and forth with copy editors was probably 4 or 5 months of sending back one email, getting it back again, and really trying to finesse it to this finished form, which we're very happy about, but there's certainly a lot of hours all told.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, I have to add, it was time difference, first of all. Like Tim is 5 hours ahead. So when I wake up in the morning, I have like all of these texts like, oh, did you see this from the episode? Let's reply. Lots of these actionable items. And then, we were working, of course, on our full-time jobs. And then every weekend, we basically had a writing date. And every 8 a.m. basically in the morning was our time. And I didn't often make it right on time, but Tim is extremely, on time and super punctual. So I think if anyone over here in the audience wants to write a book, since we are celebrating World Book Day today, I highly recommend doing it with a co-author. It just makes it way more fun, and also just is so nice to have an accountability buddy, because then you are, aligning your goals and setting all these little targets. Because otherwise you're like, yeah, I'll write the 50 words tomorrow. I'll write 50 words tomorrow. And then you just never do it, right? So it's really great to do it with someone who especially resonates with you or has the same ideas and philosophy. So I really kind of recommend doing that. But, some things that people don't really talk about, we first talked to the publishers in 2017. So it's taken that long to actually come alive and be here in this gorgeous physical form today. So I think that's another thing that I really learned to appreciate about just the process of writing books. I mean, being a nerd all my life and loving lots of books, I think I never kind of grasped what it really takes, the number of time and edits and all of that. So and the teamwork as well. We have amazing people who helped us with illustrations, our colleague Molly, and colleagues who had helped do a little proofreads and everything. So yeah, I think really appreciative for the whole journey. And just like on a funny little anecdote on that note as well, I think I actually already mentioned I was like super late sometimes when Tim and I were writing and things like that. But yeah, I think writing in a pandemic is not easy. Lots of digital time and Zoom fatigue is real sometimes. But I'm so glad we did it together.
That's amazing. Did either of you ever think you would author a book?
No. Never. So actually, not a lot of people know this, but growing up, I had tons of learning disabilities. So I'm super dyslexic, and I still, mix up my my's and by's, and I often don't even recognize it or see it. Like I have to probably read it 2-3 times to actually maybe potentially catch that mistake. And in school, I would remember kind of reading the paragraph or like the comprehension, and I would literally just start attempting like the first question when the teachers would say like pencils down, and I would I have like practically never finished a test or an exam because of that, because I was just a little slower at writing. So I think I'd never ever thought I would actually co-author a book. So again, really big thank you to everyone who believed in us to make it all happen, and Penguin and Tim and everyone who made this kind of happen.
That's beautiful. Tim, how about you?
Yeah, I think the great thing for anyone looking to write a book, and certainly from our perspective, having two of us writing a book, having a different perspective coming in and discussing that as well is really a wonderful thing to have a part of. And then due to the fact that we really worked with a larger team, as much as it's ourselves and our illustrator Molly, so for everyone who hasn't seen the inside of the book as well, it's filled with a vast amount of fantastic illustrations to explain some things like systems concepts and chapter titles and that sort of thing as well. So working alongside the three of us, and then also the broader Necessities team and other families and family and friends as well, to gain a different set of eyes is really important when you're trying to do something like this, and can be all consuming. So really having the extra people around to be able to detach from it and come back and is really, really important for anyone thinking about writing a book or interested to hear how we did this. There's times where we've tried to escape this and come across some really great ideas. And I was discussing with Sahar a few weeks ago, there was one idea in there, which was a sustainable gifting idea. So one of, I think, Sahar and my favorite chapters being the gifting chapter about sharing things with communities in a sustainable way, was all about sort of gifting plants and different items that you could really have in your home for a long time. But that all came about because we were having a Bare Necessities team, a Secret Santa sort of event in December, completely nothing to do with the book, and it wasn't in there. But then it's like, that's a great sustainable idea. So being able to step back, you'll find some ideas and be able to incorporate many of them, if not directly like that, but just in terms of that entire concept to gain fresh set of eyes is really important.
Yeah, just along though, sorry, just to add to what Tim said, I think also to be okay with criticism and be open to it, or like feedback, because we did rope in a lot of our colleagues to share their feedback, and oftentimes it was like, oh, this needs work or whatever. It's not what you want to hear when you've worked tirelessly to come up with that draft or whatever. But I think just being open to feedback, I think is really special, because honestly, the initial idea of the book to what it is now, it's really evolved. And I think, the editor Tarni, whose idea actually was the Zero Waste Library, was something like that, was a great feedback. So being open to incorporating feedback, because honestly, it just helps the book become the best version that it possibly can be.
That's great advice, Sahar. I think everyone should be open to the people that you trust, at least. Be open to their advice. I think that's a very good takeaway for anyone that is even working on a startup idea right now, or a book. Lovely. I want to dive a little bit into the chapters of the book. So Sahar, can you provide us a little bit of insight into the first two chapters, which is personal care and closet?
Yeah, so we've touched a little bit about personal care, so I'm actually going to dive into the closet. And I think, we articulate so much of who we are through our clothing. So I think, why not make it a more sustainable one? And I think we all know this, but like India has so much to celebrate, with each state having its own kind of art form, and you know that well, Tanya. But really celebrating kind of different kinds of arts through what we are clothing ourselves with is a great idea. So whether that's bandhani or ikat or khadi or whatnot. And of course, we all know that our arts and textiles employ about the second largest percentage of Indians in the process. So, why not kind of embrace this versus the fast fashion that we all know is so polluting, especially this month, it's being Fashion Revolution week and month. It's really kind of, we should be asking the questions about who made my clothes, how much they get paid, and what's in my clothes. Are there just microfibers that are being bleached out every time I do a laundry load? So we put in a lot of amazing examples across cities of clothes swaps, of calling your local tailor, making things up, stitching things to your own style, to your own fashion, but really kind of supporting artisans. We've highlighted lots of DIYs as well, what you can do, a bunch of old t-shirts that I know I'm very sentimental. So I had like all of my college t-shirts and I was like, oh no, I know I need to get rid of it, but it's been really good about it. But kind of DIY on how you can kind of use all of your old college t-shirts or concert t-shirts, whatever that means a lot to you, into kind of making a big quilt that you can use. So really kind of adding value or more uses to something that is already in your closet in a more, fun, accessible way that you actually might utilize.
That's fantastic. I also think it's very important for everything that you just said for people to really like absorb, because more often than not, it is about convenience for us. It's about just going to a specific store, saying, hey, this is not so expensive, let me buy it, but you're not necessarily consciously thinking what fabric this piece of clothing is made of, how much the person who has made this clothing has been paid. Not necessarily thinking these things, but I think it's very important to make these small conscious decisions every day. Absolutely. Tim, can you talk a little bit about the solutions found in kitchen and home care chapter, in the chapters of the book?
Yeah, of course. I think the kitchen, to begin with, is one where everyone can really relate, and there's a great visual about how to reduce waste when I'm talking about, say, organic food. And there's such a large amount of organic waste across the world, but particularly in India as well, with so many people going hungry each year, but then you've got such an amount of waste from that. So minimizing that, you can think about things like buying local and in-season products, and not in excessive quantities, so enough that you would need to actually eat it or your family without actually having waste. But then if you've got the peels and offcuts as well, then learning how to compost and implement these. And we mentioned Daily Dump, an organization I worked with before, and Sahar's obviously I've had a mentor, I suppose, in Poonam, founder of Necessities, of Daily Dump as well. So it's been a great way to see this process of having organic products move to compost, and then that compost being able to be a nutrient for plants as well. And when you can start to see that circular flow in a very simple perspective, having a banana peel or an apple core going into, well, from your plate to the compost bin to the plants that may be growing, say your chilies out in your garden, or herbs as well, is sort of that understanding about how the entire system of reducing your waste can occur. And the same with your home as well, when you're thinking a little bit larger. And as Sahar mentioned at the top, where we're thinking bigger and bigger steps. So the fashion choices are quite intimate, and then your kitchen, you're getting a little bit more communal, the same with your home as well. So how can you start to reduce waste in an environment where you've suddenly got 3, 4, 5 different people around you, and how you actually going to start to communicate that you may want to be switching the lights off, or thinking about moving to renewable energy if that's possible in your location. And then also even simple things like reducing waste in your washing loads, or using organic laundry as well. And a lot of the things that we talk about within the book is all about making a choice, and thinking about making a choice is really the first step, and then finding those solutions, because there could be 10 solutions, and some of those might work better for you on a certain week, or better for the 4 or 5 people you may be living with, and then other times it might be something else. But it's just trying to work out something that'll equate to reducing waste as an overall in the long term, but also in a way that you can enjoy and incorporate within your life, because you can see those benefits, which may just be the extra nutrients on your plant because of the compost from the apple peel that you had to begin with. And it's that entire process.
Absolutely. And very rightly said, Tim. I think it all boils down to every individual making a choice. And I think the Hyderabad composting community is big, and they're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
The community is constantly spreading awareness. A lot of people understand what composting is and how to do it. So it's fantastic to hear everything else that you had to say. Sahar, we had just had a conversation about your gifting community, but you also mentioned it, your passion for the gifting community, but it's also in the book. Why is it so important to you?
Yeah, I think gifting is an opportunity to articulate what your values are to someone. And I think we can take opportunity to really be more mindful about it. Honestly, I think some of the best gifts I've gotten are my friend gave me scuba diving lesson when I finished college. And I think those are things that I really cherish. So I think this whole shift of rhetoric from consuming and buying material gifts and accumulating stuff versus experiences is something that I'm really kind of passionate about. Whether it is a birthday that you want to spend in the park with your mom and you have to picnic, or just the idea of bringing back the handmade gifts, or just supporting local economy through your choices. I mean, if you're trying to do toys, I have a niece and nephew, and I get them Chanapatna toys that are made from a local town right outside Bangalore. So really kind of celebrating I think India one, but also articulating what your values are through what you're gifting. I love also just gifting books to my niece. I'm really quite cognizant about what I do gift to her. And I think, again, books are a really good one. In fact, one of our favorite books is Good Night Girl for Rebel Girls, Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls. And she essentially opens a photo of one of the women, and alongside is a story about the woman, right? And I read out the story. So we play this game all the time. So I think it's a really fun kind of activity, but also I think we're kind of talking about amazing women who've changed the course of history through this thing that, So yeah, so I think that's one about gifting and about communities. Honestly, India is so rich in that. And I think in the book, especially, we talk a deep dive on the Mumbai Dabawala example, because it is so communal. It is a community that has existed for so long. They are delivering these amazing home cooked meals without any waste, which is, just challenging the food startups of the world on every kind of front on that. So I think really what we're also articulating is that circular economy is this opportunity to marry models of the old with the new, but do it in a way that is cleaner, greener, and more just. And that's what we're most excited about. Yeah, so those are a few. Actually, can I share a few more examples?
Of course, yes, of course.
And then in that, we've highlighted enterprises, like there's an enterprise called Scrap that does waste collection after music concerts and things like that. So we've highlighted local examples like that. And N87, which is this amazing music festival, and they actually segregate and make sure nothing lands up in landfills post the event. There are all these amazing community solutions on e-waste recycling at offices or different cities. So we've kind of tried to highlight a bunch of examples that were meaningful for us. So yeah, that's just a few.
That's lovely. That's really lovely. So Tim, the book concludes by dwelling into broad global topics. What lessons can be learned from the concluding chapters in the book?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've really tried to do by concluding by city and travel, which are a little bit more complex than some of the others because there's so many parts of that, and that could be how a local government organization is working or businesses around you, and that could be, well, how can I actually make a difference? But when you're falling back on the knowledge that you've been developing over the book, whether that's starting in your bathroom at the start of the day and reducing waste there, and how that may have a broader effect of having less chemical output into a river, for instance, if you're using an organic shampoo, as opposed to something that might be polluting some of Bangalore's rivers, and understanding that kind of smaller actions to kind of build up to being able to have a larger scale impact is really, really important.
Right.
And one of the big things that we've tried to articulate and provide as knowledge, I guess, for anyone viewing this kind of information for the first time is understanding the difference between this linear process where an item will just end up in landfill in different forms as well. So that could be into that water example, or large amounts of fashion waste or community waste going into landfill or into the ocean. But then how do you actually close that by making a circular system? And that could be in ways like using sustainable transport with Bangalore's new metro, or different options as well. There's many coming out in India. And also, how do you travel more sustainably and sort of empathize with everything that's around you? Because quite often what we've found is when you're going away, you're removed from it, you're on this rush, you think you can have a complete holiday without necessarily seeing an impact where you are. So are you leaving waste behind for a community that you're visiting to have to deal with, and how can they work with that? But then what solution could you actually do? And it could be by taking sustainable travel items with you. So it could be as simple as a sustainable straw, or not printing an e-ticket when you're on a bus, and many examples. I think Sahar's got a book open there to show a few things.
Yeah, just some illustrations around the cities, and highlighting what the linear version is and what the circular version is, which was done by Molly. And that's kind of scattered throughout the chapters. But just to...
That's lovely. So this brings us to our last question. I wanted to leave this for Sahar. You're a true zero waste champion, inspiring entrepreneurs, and so much more. The book is aiming to create a wide range of impact and change behaviors towards waste in the country. Can you provide a couple of final thoughts on why people should open the page of your book and start to live a zero waste life?
That's a really deep question, Tanya. Thank you for that. Honestly, I think we all know we're living through the largest global garbage crisis of our lifetime. I think we've all, been at a beach or been on a hike by beautiful nature and been really happy, but also have been confronted by waste, even in some of the most untouched parts, which we think should be pristine. And in India, we often kind of are confronted by our waste on a more daily basis. And I think we are at that crossroads where, we know the science is out there. There's meant to be more plastic in the ocean by 2050 than fish. And we're at this amazing crossroads now. And it has an immense opportunity for all of us entrepreneurs, individuals, communities to come together to really kind of redesign, reinvent solutions, not just for us, but also for generations to come. And I think it is an immense opportunity. I think we can, become waste managers like the West and just segregate and then literally ship it out to more countries, but we're running out. We can't do that anymore. Or we're at this opportunity where we can really reinvent solutions, redesign our cities, redesign the way we look at how we consume. How do we use behavioral economics to just make sustainability the norm and not the exception? How does policy incentivize sustainable businesses to exist? How can we create taxation policies that help to really make this a large scale or institutional change, right? All of us remember when there was a rule, just simple thing that, you have to put on your seatbelt and if not, you get fined. And we saw how that really made implementation large scale, right? So what if we were to say that we're going to really use the polluters pay principle and the companies that are really polluting have to pay X amount? Financial incentives often actually move mountains in terms of driving behavior change in the beginning. So whether that's positive or negative, whether that means giving a tax rebate to sustainable businesses that are trying to combat our plastic pollution problem. So I think we're just at this crossroads, and I think our generation needs to take that very seriously. And it also allows for so much innovation, right? The world is our laboratory, and we can kind of help redesign this cleaner world through these solutions. So I think it's really important. And on a more personal level, I think if I'm at this beautiful beach or hiking somewhere and I see all of this plastic next to me, I want to be able to tell my niece and nephew that at least I tried not to put it there in the first place. So yeah, that's just from a more personal level as well.
Absolutely, that's fantastic and very, very well said. I think all of us have a responsibility, and it is really up to our generation to take a stand and move towards that direction. Thank you so much, Sahar and Tim, for having this conversation with me. I am moving this on to Amita to speak to you with audience questions. It was lovely chatting with all of you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Tanya.
Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed speaking with you. Thank you. That show was lovely.
Thank you.
Wonderful, Tanya. Thanks so much. Yes, there's been a lot of action in the chat box, and somebody, there's a lot being discussed about we will ultimately drown in our plastic, and that's so true. I'm so glad that these stimuli were being expressed here. I have a couple of questions. I hope that we'll have a little bit of time to take them through. There is one person, Ashna, who has read your book and quite excited, and she writes and asks a question to both the authors. What was the most challenging aspect when you adopted a sustainable lifestyle? This is a question to both of you.
Yeah, sorry, I say I'm still on mute, so I'll jump on. I think the best way forward for everyone is really understanding that those small steps, you can kind of understand, take those on board and really see them as great achievements. And that could be learning to compost for the first time, which I've mentioned a few times throughout here, but other options as well, like taking sustainable transport. gifting in a way that may be novel the first time, like giving a plant, but then understanding how that could actually have a greater effect as opposed to, say, well, once-off kind of gifts that may break down and might not be appreciated because it doesn't have the same kind of thought to it. So the transition towards this more sustainable lifestyle is all about those little steps and looking back to see all of those steps lined up and really understanding that even though that one little moment didn't have a huge impact in your life, and at that point, when you're looking back over 10 or 100 check boxes or learnings, however you like to put it, then that's really the big plus.
Yeah. Honestly, at first it was really hard. I used to wear contact lenses every day of my life, so I would, use monthly disposals, lots of medicines that I used to, have quite often. But I started to try and embrace more natural remedies, and whether that's turmeric and hot water, or cinnamon, etc. Sorry, it's thunderstorming in Bangalore. So at first, maybe those, when I was really used to using some medicines that perhaps I didn't even really need. And then the other thing was granola bars and snacks and chocolates. Those were really tough for me initially, especially granola bars, because when I, just started on my sustainability journey, I was really into biking. So I would go on these really long cycle rides. And it's just a bottle of water and whatever you can fit in your back pocket. So often it would be a granola bar, and it's not easy to carry a big glass dabba with your almonds or walnuts or whatever. So that's still all in my jar. Or sometimes when you go to a concert and they insist on giving you like a plastic band to enter the venue, and those are things that you just can't avoid, right? So those are all little things that were pretty hard at first. And then I started to become a little bit more prepared or knew what to do. And yeah, I think that's just kind of evolved a little bit with time.
Wonderful. Yes, on those same lines, it is Tejita asking, was it difficult for you to switch? I mean, you already answered this, but I mean, was it more a physical act of difficulty, or was it a mental state that you had to get into to make that change?
Yeah, definitely. So sometimes, when you would go out and, if you are getting a drink or a juice or whatever, and you often sometimes articulate to the server to say, like, I don't want a plastic straw, or like just without a straw, please. And they give it to you anyways, right? So sometimes it's a little bit of those things. Or when I moved back, I started to live with my mom, and I love her so much, but she already had her set of ways in the kitchen, or was already used to certain suppliers for certain things. And so it's sometimes a little hard to navigate your own values when you're with others, and to do it in a way that's just really mindful and respectful of them, and not to hurt their feelings or to down anyone, but to articulate what you're trying to do and why. So what I started to do was I would get this foodie box, of produce just delivered at home in a cardboard box. And every Tuesday morning at like 5 a.m. they come and deliver it. And my mom just fell in love with the quality of produce. So for her, maybe going zero waste in the kitchen wasn't a environmental benefit, but maybe it was just a health benefit. And she absolutely just loved the, amazing fresh quality of all of the fruits and vegetables that we were then getting. So finding those co-benefits that work with your loved ones or the people around you. And sometimes it could be financial incentives, and sometimes it could be health, finding whatever that is in order to make it easier. Because yeah, you want it to be a fun journey and a process, and you don't want to make it hard on anyone, especially your loved ones.
That's true. Would you like to add to that, Tim? Or may I ask a further question to that? Because you have grown up and lived in Australia, and you're back there again. You have lived here, and you did say that you've done lots of workshops across the country. What are these different perspectives that you gained in terms of you a different world, which is at a different space at this moment in awareness of environment and garbage segregation, etc., and what you witnessed here? Would you like to just tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, of course. The Video did just cut out a little bit, so I'm going to kind of hopefully fill in the right gaps in between that with my answer. So, yeah, it was a fantastic opportunity to be able to live and work in India and other locations that I've been at. And one of the things that I find you can develop, and it doesn't necessarily need to be going from one country to the other, but it could be a different city or a town, or even one part of a city like Hyderabad or Bangalore that's so huge. If you haven't been to a different location within there and interacting with people, you're gaining a lot of empathy from different communities who you actually meet. And you do that a lot by speaking to people and asking questions for things that you don't actually know. And I think that's one of the key drivers in what my passion to be a part of this, because I'm always learning from people like Sahar or other individuals that I might meet, say at a chai shop or different locations as well. So kind of finding out about people is as much about me learning from them as them learning from me, and then just kind of having that as just a conversation. And that's a big thing in terms of bringing perspective to write a book like this, and then also both on a professional and personal perspective as well, to really learn and grow as an individual. And that's what we're really trying to highlight within this text and within the workshops and events that we've run as part of the sustainability sector. It's all about just learning and transitioning yourself and developing everyone as a society just up a little bit further, to be more cohesive, which hopefully we're doing more and more these days, and have more of an understanding with the current climate.
Very well said. Thank you. Somebody here, well, Dadi Bhote is asking here, what's your opinion on the promotion of mud-baked cups and such items?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's a great way to support local artisans, whether that is clay pots or terracotta pots. In Bangalore, we have Pottery Town, and we love to go there. And every Diwali, we get a bunch of homemade diyas that are made from earthen clay pots, and kind of add them to our necessities boxes and things like that. And clearly, it's an art form that's dying, and I think all sorts of Indian art forms of that nature should be encouraged and supported.
Wonderful. And I think you do treat that in your book and talk about it, right? I don't know if everybody has had a good look at the book. This is the book that we're talking about, and I'll say a few words a little later about this again. There is one more question that is being asked about by Vijay Kumar, a colleague of mine at HLF. Unless organic products are competitively priced, and at the moment they are not, will they ever become an automatic choice in a cost-conscious country like ours, or will they remain a class statement?
Tim, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So I think with a lot of the cost decisions, and obviously India is a very cost-conscious country, and I certainly understand that Australia is as well, and other locations across the world. So with sustainability and sustainable choices as an overall, it's more of an evolution of process where the true cost of an item quite often hasn't been incorporated in every level, I suppose I should put that. So when we're trying to transition to new modes and methods using, say, the vegetable box that Sahar mentioned earlier, if you can go and purchase something in bulk from a specific supplier, the quality is fantastic, then that will probably be reducing your costs. And you can do a bit of research in that as well. The overall sort of systemic sort of subsidies and pressures to keep certain items lower that may currently be less sustainable will be those larger changes that we were talking about with some of the city and travel chapters. And that's a lot more about, I suppose, government and things like that. But those kind of actions can occur from a larger amount of citizen movement and citizen interest as well. And we see that a lot these days in the last couple of years with climate action groups, where a few years ago there were only a handful of people involved, and now you see these larger communities of people with hundreds upon thousands of people coming together. So having those kind of shifts, they can start as that simple choice of trying to find an alternative. At the moment today, it may be a little bit more expensive, but then also there's these other sort of and co-working factors of that too. So if the organic product is going to help your health long term, then there may be other benefits as well. So you might be healthier and not need to visit a doctor, or other benefits too. So sort of multi-layered, and researching and understanding those processes more is really, really helpful to find that out.
Wonderful. Yes. Sahar, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's economies of scale, problem and solution. We need more people to just demand better products, and then the rest will follow. More manufacturers will create those products. Maybe there'll be the right incentives in place, and it will ultimately help reduce the price of alternatives and make it accessible to everyone.
May I add here myself, because I have been following organic for many years now, and economy of scales is exactly what it is. Sahar and Tim have both said, but there are also a few other issues about permissions and the labels, and these labels cost a lot. And if the government would promote organic material and bring down the cost of the labels in order to be able to put that this is an organic vegetable or grains or whatever, that would probably support those who are already in a very small niche market. I don't think it's a question of a prestige or label or elitism. It really is a question of trying to see how to upscale this. In fact, there's an experiment that our office is doing, the Goethe Zentrum is doing. We are buying directly from the farmers, and the grain which are organic. We have got people to testify this and verify this, and we get on a monthly basis all our grains that this particular group of organic farmers, about 200 kilometers from Hyderabad, have and grow, and they come to us directly, and the cost is marginally more, possibly for transfer and things like that, but otherwise we can taste the difference and we can feel the health, and it is not spending more. So I don't think that argument holds. However, we have to continue and grow as a market, demanding organic stuff. So sorry that I take this over from you, Sahar and Tim.
No, that's okay. Just to add to that as well, I think what you're saying about your organization going out to purchase those kind of items really shows a lot of leadership as a whole. And we see that in other areas and outside of India. A prime example in Australia is things like renewable energy, where my government isn't backing it as strongly as some businesses might want to do it. So lots of businesses going out and building large-scale batteries or solar farms, that sort of thing as well. So when we're talking about produce within India, if you've got a number of businesses trying to focus on that and experts in the field sort of who really know what kind of quality that is and can justify that and highlight that standard to the regular consumer who may just be at an entry level of knowledge about this kind of area, then you're able to sort of share that around and grow as a market. And if it's just one business today, it might be 2 tomorrow. By the time it's 10, then the government takes a bit more of a share, and they get to chip in those areas that you mentioned.
Absolutely correct. Wonderful. I believe there are a couple of children in the audience, and one of them is asking very beautifully. He says, "What will happen if we stop using plastic all at once?"
Oh my goodness, the world will breathe, the earth will breathe again, and we'll have less plastic landing up in our oceans and our landfills. And yeah, I think it would be really wonderful. But also, change happens slowly and incrementally. So for example, in hospitals, etc., sometimes there is some unavoidable plastic in certain sectors. So maybe we can make a phase out plan where some of the essentials or high priority areas can continue using plastic in the interim. But whereas us as consumers, I mean, we really don't need that, plastic for our chai or our snacks and things like that. So I think it would be amazing. It would also spur innovation to create alternatives.
There's one more very beautiful, cute question here as well, possibly from a young child. Well, what happens if we just throw all our garbage out into the space?
into space, like outer space.
Out of space.
Yeah, so I think if we're talking about being conscious citizens, which is something that we speak of highly within the book, and really being a part of the whole solution, throwing something away is what we have been doing, and it may not be into space, but the space could be the ocean, top of the mountains, that kind of thing. So being active citizens, conscious about what we're doing and the world around us, and the fact that we are connected to everything, as opposed to this disconnected, throw it in the landfill or throw it into the ocean, then as a society, we really want to be doing something more about that. As much of a challenge, I suppose, to show that we can do this kind of thing because it's responsible. Yeah. Sahar, I don't know if you want to jump on the outer space question as well.
Thank you. One last question by Satish, who says he would like to know how this book has been produced. Has it been made on waste material or on special paper? Would you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yes, that's a great question. It is certified FSC paper. So it is, certified ecologically sound, and, environmental considerations have been taken into account, and it is printed on recycled certified FSC paper. And actually, Penguin is an amazing publisher, and they've started publishing all of their books on FSC paper.
And there are ebook examples as well. If you want to stay completely paperless and you have just an ebook, then it's certainly available there on a number of platforms too. So
you can see that at the end of the book, it says it's certified and it's available on the ebook.
Correct. There it is. Well, thank you, Sahar and Tim. We've come to the end of our session. I think these were such wonderful nuggets of experience and knowledge, and your passion that you have passed on to us. This is really very meaningful in the context of you having transferred this experience into a book. Tanya asked about this at the beginning. So did you know you were going to write? You were going to write during pandemic, etc., etc. Well, rightly said, we wish that there was no pandemic, but we know that the pandemic is there because we are somehow also responsible for it. So there cannot be a better time than this for us to not only, and here is to all our audience here, not only to pick up this book. Please go out there and buy the book. It is an easy read. It has been put together with a lot of effort, but very logically, with exercises and questions and quiz and tips and reading material. It is marvelous the way it has been put together, bare necessities and how to live a zero waste life. But not only do you go out to buy this book, to read this book, but I would like to quote both Sahar and Tim, who talked here and said, so Sahar talked about redesigning the world. I think it's such a beautiful concept. We have come a long way with our parents and grandparents in our lives and what have you. We have a world that was made out for us. Can we redesign it? Can we rethink? Can we talk about living a different life, because we now need to urgently do so. So here is Sahar's quote, and Tim, who responded to that young child saying, throw the garbage out. Well, let us be responsible citizens. I think these are very crucial statements made by two very passionate environmentalists. And I would urge all of us to see that we begin to make use of this book. And at no point does the book say that this is how it can be done. They are giving suggestions and solutions. And can we help reinvent these solutions? Can we begin to make a difference? Can we really not try to create less waste? Thank you, Sahar, for this wonderful opportunity, not only today, but also for the workshop that you hosted for us for this Earth Week for Goethe-Zentrum 2 days ago. But I think this has been such a meaningful week for us, such a lot of learning and so inspiring. Tim, thank you very much for putting this in such wonderful way, the book, your talk. And Tanya, please do come online. I think she seems to have gone. I don't see her here. But if Tanya is there, but even in her absence, I'd like to say thank you, Tanya, for taking us through this experiential conversation that you held. And since you knew Sahar and the products and all of that, I think it's wonderful. Are they still available here physically at the chalet?
Yes, it's available at the chalet.
So I would urge people who would like to make a trip to chalet whenever it is possible. But of course, Bare Necessities is accessible online through lots of their products and thoughts and concepts. Here's to each one of you in the audience, to Sahar and Tim and Tanya. Thank you for making this possible. And here is to a better, less waste world that we will redesign together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
the Hyderabad Literary Fest and Amita and team and the Goethe Institute. It's been really fun collaborating this Earth Day. And thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks to all the audience for being here. Good evening to all of you. Today is a day to mull over all these inspiring thoughts. Thank you.